Oh, here's another funny aesthetics civility thing. Here it is. New York Times did a report that an upside down flag, a symbol of Stop the Steal, flew over Justice Alito's house after January 6th. This is such a funny ass thing to do a news article around, a news hit around, and I have to cover it because I feel like it perfectly pairs with the rest of the conversation. You know, little column B, a little column A. Okay, watch.
We have new reporting in the New York Times that I find absolutely staggering.
Absolutely staggering, guys. I can't believe it. I cannot believe it.
That for days in and around January 17th, 2021, neighbors told the New York Times that Justice Samuel Alito, one of the 9 justices on the Supreme Court, had an American flag hanging upside down outside of his house. That inverted flag was being used as a symbol of the Stop the Steal movement. This is a justice who is very engaged, continues to be, in and around issues concerning Trump's role in the January 6th insurrection.
Guys, you mean to tell me that Justice Samuel Anthony Alito Jr. is a Trump supporter? Guys, I'm sorry. You know, we were going to talk about, people were in the chat asking me to do a trigger warning for the Diddy abuse video. And I forgot that the real trigger warning, guys, democracy is falling apart here. Justice Samuel Anthony Alito Jr. flew an upside down American flag on January 6th, and you guys are talking about some fucking kick streamer who should have been permanently jailed and institutionalized for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, you know who actually should be permanently jailed and institutionalized? Justice Samuel Anthony Alito Jr. Not to be a conspiracy, Andy, but it feels like the shitters always come in when you start talking about real shit and try to derail you. Exactly. Johnny Somalia and Destiny are the same person in so many ways. So it's odd that they hate when he does it, but they love when Destiny does it. I guess because he's white and Johnny isn't. It's probably what it is. They're both gross, disgusting little freaks. They're little gremlins. Back to the fall of democracy, a very serious story that we're covering. Nominated to the High Court by President George W. Bush on October 31st, 2005, who served on the Supreme Court of the United States of America since January 31st, 2006. Justice Samuel Alito. Can't believe he did that.
Apparently had a Stop the Steal flag flying outside of his house. He says in a denial, I had no involvement whatsoever in the flying of the flag. It was briefly placed by Mrs. Alito, Martha Ann Alito, in response to a neighbor's use of objectionable and personally insulting language on our yard sign.
It was briefly placed by Mrs. Alito. Damn, he immediately said it's the wife. he pulled the ripcord. It's my bitch wife, dude. You know how it is. Yeah. Also known as the Clarence Thomas response. It's great. Good stuff overall. The old ball and chain. She did it. It was briefly placed by Mrs. Alito in the response to a neighbor's use of objectionable and personally insulting language on yard signs. This is nothing but This is extremely white people shit, by the way. I love this argument, and I love this conversation as well. Like, this is what white people are doing. They're duking it out over, like, lawn signs and you know, flipping the flag over and stuff. Who gives a shit about any of this, man? Like, actually, this is objectively one of the dumbest stories I've ever heard. Yeah, dude, I knew that he was a piece of shit, okay? He's a Bush appointee Supreme Court justice. Of course, he's a reactionary monster. The fuck are we talking about? How is this news, man? What are we doing right now? Democracy dies in the darkness. And that darkness is when we don't cover Samuel Alito 4 years ago having a fucking upside down flag on January 6th. The Supreme Court of the United States of America literally rolled back one of the most significant civil liberties in terms of women's bodily autonomy. And we're over here talking about this shit? Are you fucking insane? Bro, you're a homeowner. You're supposed to get in on this shit. I know. I should be getting very mad about this. We're doing HOA convos, dude, from 4 years ago. I don't know if you know this, but your edges were not trimmed appropriately according to the Homeowners Association rules guideline. So I flipped my fucking flag. Like, who cares? Brother, it's a big deal because Alito voted to take up the 2020 election case and is currently deciding whether Trump is going to be a god king. Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but I didn't need this upside down flag story to know how he was going to go on the 2020 election case. It's so funny to be like, yeah, this actually spells trouble. It's like, bro, do you know how the Supreme Court operates? Come on, guys. Like, what are we thinking here? You think the people on the Supreme Court that don't have this kind of situation going on at their houses 4 years ago are also going to rule in defense of democracy or American principles? No. Yeah, but it kind of spoils the ruling a little bit. Guys, I don't think you understand what I'm saying, okay? Right-wing Supreme Court justices do not operate on anything but ideological boundaries. Every Supreme Court justice operates on ideological boundaries. It has always been the case. The notion that this like taints their judgment is the notion that this instance is a further proof that like his judgment is tainted is idiotic. Every single one of them is going to basically calculate two things. One, how far can we go in our right-wing sentiment that we express in all of our decisions without basically destroying what remains of the Supreme Court's, institutional, what remains of the Supreme Court's institutional legitimacy. That's it. That's the only thing that they care about, so that they can keep making these decisions without people burning the fucking Supreme Court down.
You know, a neighborhood snafu, a little battle between neighbors. Rachel, do you have thoughts on that news coming against the backdrop of today?
It's unsettling. It's gross. First of all, everybody has different marriage rules, but it's my wife's fault is probably never within the marriage rules when you are talking to the New York Times about something that you've done that has brought enough scandal upon you and the institution you represent that it's on the front page of the New York Times. It was my wife. Like, I just don't, even if it was, like, just, I don't know. I don't want to give you any advice. But I feel like, the upside down flag, it wasn't like he had a Trump 2024, Trump 2028 flag up there. It was the American flag upside down, which is a traditional symbol of distress. Unless Mrs. Alito, I guess, was signaling her distress and calling for help. The explanation makes no sense. That was something that people were doing around that time to indicate that the country was effectively under siege in some way, which is what Trump supported.
Why did you say this is a bullshit news story, but continue to cover this bullshit news story? Because I'm talking about something broader about civility politics, and how liberals care more about the aesthetics of a certain thing rather than the actual intent and the actual impact. That's what this is about. This coverage is not simply about this news story. This coverage is more so me making fun of liberals caring more about the symbolism of an upside down flag. I hope that clarifies it for chatters. I don't know why you're so mad at me covering this, by the way. Calm down, I think.
Reporters were making the case for when they were describing the election as having been stolen when it wasn't. Justice Alito has become increasingly unembarrassed about displaying himself as a partisan, as a consumer of partisan narratives and media, and in ruling in ways that is just kind of out loud, all caps, disdainful toward a majority of the country in some cases, or certainly against people who disagree with him. And this fits with that, but it's also something that I've never heard anything like this in the entire history of every controversy I've ever known about with the United States Supreme Court. I think Chief Justice Roberts has a problem on his hands in terms of the behavior of some of the more aggressive justices and those who are really flouting ethics concerns and equanimity concerns with their behavior.
Yeah. Those neighbors who did not report the flag knew exactly what kind of person Alito is and knew that Alito and his wife were linking themselves publicly to violent extremists by displaying that flag. That's why the neighbors feared reprisals and stayed silent. If you see something, say something. Okay, guys? If you see something, say something. Please. It's unacceptable. La, 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 la.